What's up guys, today I'm going to do a video going over my VSR1 build here. It's going to be an overview video as far as like compatibility, what ended up fitting in this rifle, what didn't, what worked, what didn't, and also just kind of a part by part breakdown as I not install, but as I disassemble everything, show you guys what's in it and things like that as far as that goes. I won't have in this video what I'm going to do with the stock eventually and what I'm going to do with the hop-up unit eventually. As far as like the Tritos TDC 2.0 install, I'll do that in a separate tutorial video. And the back Picatinny mounted stock, switching out that buffer tube base plate on the back. It's going to be Picatinny mounted. That'll be a separate video as well, doing an install and showing what stock I ended up going with for that. That'll be two separate tutorials, so that information won't be in here, but everything else will be of what's in this and compatibility with different parts as far as like trigger, different hop-ups, and different barrels, because that is a big portion of why this is a little bit more of a proprietary build because of the outer barrel, and I'll mention that in this video, and that'll be covered in this. So as far as that goes, this is the build so far. I'm going to do a top-down view of showing each part that I have installed in this, so you'll be able to see as I disassemble it, each part installed and how it's compatible, how it fits, how it works, things like that. Also a disassembly, so you guys kind of know what's going on and how to disassemble your VSR1. Pretty standard, a few different differences as far as disassembly, but not too many differences as far as that goes. But like I said, the outer barrel is a big thing that I want to cover in this video. It is proprietary, and I just want to show that. So it's also a little finicky on the triggers that it takes here, and yeah, so that'll be covered, but for the most part it's VSR spec. But you know, this is what this video is for, to kind of go through and you know, step by step, you know, cover each thing in this build. I was going to cover literally every pinpoint thing inside of this as far as like the build process, working my way up to finishing the build, and how it went from installing parts that didn't work, that did work, and things like that, and like just going through it all, like just raw footage. So, but it didn't end up working because it was like 2 hours worth of footage, and I don't think anybody wants to watch that long of a video. Some people might, some of the hardcore VSR builder guys, but I mean, I'm not going to have that in this video today. It's going to be a little bit shortened based off the information I had when I went to put this build together. It's going to be, you know, compact video, so it's easier to comprehend and get the information in that you actually need, because some information was just, you know, probably information you already knew as I disassembled the VSR1. Most of you guys know how to disassemble a VSR10, I'm guessing, just by watching videos and maybe doing it on your own already. So yeah, so if you're interested in a VSR1, this build video is for you, because a lot of compatibility things will be tested in this video, and just my personal parts that are installed as well. And you can find all these parts on roomarmament.com, so check that out if you're interested in parts. So let's head over to the top-down view table of where I will start disassembling this and go through some of that stuff. So let's get into that. So guys, I'm back at the table, and I'm going to start disassembling this and showing some things that will fit in this build. And also what I already have in the build, things like that. So here it is, VSR1. You can see a few things on the table. I'm going to test inner barrels, the cylinders, see what's compatible as far as that goes. The outer barrel, the biggest thing. The top two things are the barrel and the trigger unit. I'll show that trigger unit and the Springer trigger unit that I actually was able to install in here. And then the hop-up unit. A lot of people are wondering if you can throw an Action Army hop-up in here. So we'll get into that right now. Let me start disassembling things. It's your pretty basic 3 body screws, 3 chassis screws that hold this all together. So let's get to that. disassembled. And this last screw at the back, the front here, I mean. It's a little bit tighter. And there is that. This should pop open. Then you got your upper and your lower chassis. This is your upper assembly. As you can see here, pretty basic VSR standard upper internals, like your receiver, your outer barrel, you've got a hop-up block here, and then your trigger unit, and then obviously the cylinder and the bolt assembly, VSR spec. As long as you have a VSR spec receiver, it can be compatible with the chassis here. The outer barrel is slightly different. As you can see here, there's a cutout here for the purpose of an ejection port for the magazine. It's a little like lever here. It's kind of made of like plastic or polymer, but it just feels like plastic. But it's the same concept as Novrich's pretty innovative hop-up block, where it's got the springboards here. You put the mag in, you hit the mag release, and the mag just pops out of the lower portion of the chassis, so your magazine is quick and easy to access, so you're not digging your fingers in there to try and like wedge the mag out. So this is kind of Tokyo Marui's version of that built into the chassis, which has made things pretty proprietary, so I kind of dislike that in a way, just because of that, making the outer barrel pretty proprietary. But the internals of the outer barrel are not proprietary, so that's at least the plus. You can still stick with your VSR hop-up unit, inner barrel bucking, all that good stuff. The hop-up block you do have to keep, as far as if you're going to, in the chassis portion, you're going to have to keep the hop-up block, which isn't a big deal. You don't really need to upgrade it to the Novrich one with the springboards, because you've got the built-in one in the chassis, so it can pop the mag out a little bit easier. So I am going to, what am I going to do first? Let's just show the trigger. Let's start with the trigger and show that the compatibility. So as you can see here, with this trigger unit installed, it is flush with the chassis here, all the way down, no issues. And also here, you can see it is all the way flush down there. It touches the bottom of the chassis, so keep that in mind. Now I'm going to install the bolt trig from Bolt Trig. Obviously, they're an older company, now not making trigger units anymore, but I think the owner of Bolt Trig is now making triggers for Novrich, so that's why these are very similar trigger units to the Novrich triggers, so keep that in mind as well, because it's the same guy who's making the Novrich triggers, who designed them anyways. They're a little bit less durable as this one, as the originals that he made when he made the Bolt Trig triggers. So yeah, that's just something to keep in mind when you buy an Novrich trigger. You're not exactly getting a Bolt Trig, but I still have the OG one right before he ended things with that and went to Novrich and made their triggers and the lower end triggers, but same shape and everything, so keep that in mind when I put this trigger in. Here, let's throw this in real quick. Throw down the screws. Let's get this screw in, the front screw, and then the back screw. It's a little bit more finicky, so I'm going to need to get it off the table. But it does fit. for now. You'll see what I mean when I throw it into the VSR1 chassis. So now that is installed, you have the VSR1 trigger here. No issues as far as that goes, but once you get to the chassis, drop that bolt trig in, no trig, and you have problems. So it stays flush here, but since it's a wider trigger unit, it's a little bit wider as far as, you know, lowering into the bottom of the chassis. You're gonna have issues with misalignment at the back of the receiver, so it doesn't stay flush. So it is not compatible, unfortunately. So the VSR1 is definitely going to be a little bit more finicky as far as which triggers you decide to go with for the VSR1, because obviously you're going to want a 90-degree trigger, but there's options out there. But you got to keep in mind this little hump here, this massive hump, that really impacts whether or not it will fit in the original VSR1 chassis. Because I know some people like it as far as being more compact than the G-Spec. If someone wants a smaller build, throw into a bag or something, but they still want to get the range like a standard bolt-action rifle, this chassis is pretty cool, I think. In my mind it is, but it's also a little bit more flimsy just because they cut costs with a cheaper material, but it makes it more compact and lightweight, which is kind of what I'm going for with this build, so it actually works out. But in that being said, it makes it a lot smaller compartment for the trigger to sit, which makes it harder for most triggers to be compatible with this VSR1 chassis. But with the budget trigger, S trigger, the 9.3s and 9.4s, the ones that I have on the website, I already tested with the Jurassic build I have right now in the shop at the moment. That trigger worked in here, the budget trigger worked. This is actually a, you know, discontinued trigger. Hopefully he brings it back, but you know, it makes sense that he's just gonna stick with the standard S triggers, the version 9.3s and 9.4s, but which is fine. I mean, there's more, you know, modularity and different things as far as like more features on the ones I have on the website compared to this one. This one's a little bit cheaper, but just because there's less features, but it's not a big deal. This trigger still works great, amazing, never had it break, and it fits in the VSR1. Now, it would be interesting to see if the NA-Mag trigger works in here, the flex trigger, because it does kind of have a hump similar, maybe not as big, but it's very similar. But the VSR S triggers are just completely flat-lined and, you know, super compact, super minimalistic, and it just fits well. So keep that in mind when you go to pick out triggers. Whatever you decide to pick, I do have triggers available on the website that are compatible with the VSR1. So now you know, and now we'll move on. So let me remove this trigger. Let me get this on now. I think my mic's about to die here, so I'm gonna keep slowly checking to make sure the mic is on, because that 2-hour-long video really drained the battery and I haven't charged it since. So yeah, let's move to the cylinder. I'm gonna use my handy dandy cylinder tool here. Unscrew the cylinder head without a problem here. Boop, boop, boop. As you know, I'm a big fan of the Sniper Mechanics Wasp pistons. I have them available for the TAC 41, the VSR10, the SG10, and the good old SRS. Here's the VSR Wasp piston. It is compatible just because obviously you have the VSR spec cylinder, the Action Army twisted Teflon cylinder, stainless steel with a maple leaf bolt handle here. Got that. Then I've got just spring like an M170 550 FPS spring, in that range. It's a little bit lower, a little bit higher depending on what your piston setup is as far as different air brake sizes and different weights as far as the sleeves. And then I've got the Sniper Mechanics spring guide. That's kind of my setup for now in this build. It's already lubricated and everything, so keep that in mind. What I wanted to show as well with this, also I have the longest air brake in here and the heaviest weight piston sleeve. That's how I have my that's just how I have my piston set up, if you were wondering. Let me get this set nice and tight. Now, as far as cylinders go, just so you know, it's pretty similar to the one that came stock with this cylinder. As you can see here, same size. Cylinder heads are the same size. Slightly different end piece to them, but the stock cylinder head doesn't have the two compartments. For the cylinder head, it's also a pin cylinder head, so keep that in mind as well. But this cylinder, I don't know, it feels a little bit better, honestly, than the stock cylinders that usually VSR spec rifles come with. But still, once you remove that pin, you're gonna mess up some air seal. Your air seal won't be as good, even if you put some Teflon, PTFE tape, whatever you call it, on the threads here. You're still gonna have not the greatest airflow consistency, but it still will function. But I mean, once you remove that pinned cylinder head, it's kind of scratched. So I would just upgrade to whatever cylinder you decide to get, Edgy, Action Army, Maple Leaf, whatever. I personally go with Action Army. It's just compatible with so many of the parts on the website. So, and they're already tested by me and things like that. So that just, you know, extra coverage there, so you know everything works together. But yeah, this is the cylinder, same size, same diameter. It's a VSR 10 spec cylinder. So if you were wondering, and I'll even throw it in here just to show you. There it goes. Perfect fit. All right, moving on. This is going to be all one cut, so keep that in mind. Let's get to the biggest thing, is the barrel. Like I said, the outer barrel is the proprietary portion of this gun. So keep that in mind. You want to remove the top screws if you're going to remove your outer barrel, as well as heating this portion of the outer barrel, because the threads on here, when it comes stock, they're Loctited on there, like really good, like solid Loctite. So you're really gonna have to, even when you heat it up, you're gonna have to really turn that outer barrel so you can get the threads unloosened from. So I left off at the outer barrel. The mic ended up cutting out, so I've got a little bit of battery left. Kind of doing the charging as I go with the mic, but let's hop into the outer barrel. So first thing I want to show you as well is the Action Army hop unit going into the VSR1 outer barrel. It does fit. I will show it when I remove the hop-up block and then remove the stock outer barrel, but obviously it's the same diameter all the way through. I've already tested this beforehand. Like I said, there was like a 2-hour long video I'm not going to post, but keep that in mind. It is compatible. As far as the threads, it's the same threads as the 430. If you saw the upgraded barrel versus the unupgraded barrel, the stock SG VSR barrel, this is it right here. It's on the standard Action Army tactical receiver. It fits, so that means it's the same threads as the VSR1 outer barrel. So in theory, VSR1 outer barrel should be compatible, but I'm going to show you right here that is not the case. So the receiver fits on there perfectly. You don't need a trigger to show that the VSR receiver is compatible. You got the smooth flush back end here, but when you get to the bottom or the upper portion of the chassis up to the front right here, it is not flush. It is not flush at all. So it means that it will not fit completely on there with a aftermarket VSR 10 outer barrel. And that is because of the little springboard right there that the VSR1 chassis has now, and the cutout that's here. It just presses too far against the chassis, because there is obviously no cutout on the standard VSR spec outer barrels, so it's not going to be compatible. That's the thing that is a real big bummer as far as not being able to use like a longer outer barrel on this more compact, lightweight chassis. But if you're doing what I'm doing, and the whole point of like the VSR1 is it is a smaller version of the G-Spec, and it's more compact where you can fit it in like a bag or something like that and still have that max output of your highest field limits for a bolt action sniper rifle. So it's nice in that degree, but you can't really do anything with the outer barrel until maybe, we'll see, I get aftermarket outer barrels so you can have a longer inner barrel and still remain with the VSR1 chassis. But later down the road, we'll see what happens with that. But for now, it's proprietary, and I'm sticking with this outer barrel when I put the TDC on. So, because I want to keep the same length outer barrel. So now you know that. Also, the cylinder, like I showed you, is compatible with other VSR spec outer barrels, or the VSR receiver that I have here. You can put different receivers with this outer barrel because it's the same threads as the VSR 10 outer barrel. So let me unscrew this again. So yeah, you won't be able to use this, unfortunately. But what's nice about the VSR1 is, yes, the outer barrel is proprietary, but the internals of the outer barrel, like the inner barrel, the hop unit, are all the same. And I'm going to show that right now. So let me take this apart. Not yet for that smaller Phillips. Let's take these screws out of the hop block. Same two screws as it normally would be with the VSR 10. It's just a different version of the hop block. It's a little bit stubbier and smaller, so it can fit in the VSR1 chassis. But it's a better design because they made the mag release separate from this, so it makes it easier to release the mag without having to tighten your screw a certain length down, so you don't have to mess with the tightening of the front screw here. It's completely different. It's completely separate from the actual hop-up block, which is nice. So let's see here. So this is off. Set that to the side. You got this here. Now we'll need this screwdriver. Remove this. Just like that. Obviously, I'll have the Tritos TDC 2.0 on here, but for now, I'm just going to show you that this is a VSR spec hop unit. So this is a VSR 10 200 millimeter edgy inner barrel 6.01 tight bore, and it's also unbridged, the one that's in here. But the one that comes with the VSR1 is a bridge barrel, so that's a bummer, but it is what it is. So there is that, so keep that in mind. The inner barrel is compatible with VSR spec inner barrels, so maybe you want to still have an extended inner barrel to like 250 millimeter. You could then put a longer suppressor and still have a longer inner barrel without having to get a longer outer barrel, which is not currently possible unless you get it custom made somewhere. So for now, that's what I have in here. I've got a standard VSR spec bucking because this is standard hop-up chamber from a VSR 10. I'll show that right now. Let me first remove this from the stock 430 millimeter Tokyo Marui VSR 10 outer barrel. Remove that. Drop that down. Come on. It's stuck. It is stuck. There we go. It was jammed. There we go. Okay. A little quick removal of that hop unit. So as you can see here, it's the same diameter all the way around. It's literally the same Tokyo Marui VSR 10 hop-up chamber. It's just the VSR 1, but it's VSR spec, so there's no need to worry there. Just wanted to show that in this video of compatibility tests, so keep that in mind. Let me set this off to the side, deal with that later. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I have in here. I'm not going to reassemble it on video. You guys already know by just assembling it how to reassemble it. It's very similar to a VSR 10 and any other VSR spec rifle. So at that point, you just reassemble everything pretty standard. But yeah, so in this video, you were able to see all of that. Later on, I will have tutorials going over the base plate for the buffer tube of the VSR 1, switching it over to Picatinny, and I'll have a stock upgrade that'll be on here, as well as a TDC 2.0 install of the hop-up chamber on the VSR 1. That will all be in this video, so there's a lot to take away from this video. A lot of compatibility things that now you know. Pretty much long and short of it, it's picky on trigger units. It's got a proprietary outer barrel, and yeah, so, and then the chassis is slightly different because of the springboard here for the mag release, as well as this is a little bit more innovative as far as the mag release. It's built into the chassis, so you don't have to worry about it being set right with the hop-up block and the button, or the screw that goes into the hop-up block doesn't interfere with the mag release button. So that is solved with the new VSR 1 chassis. So that's pretty cool. Other than that, that's pretty much it. It's pretty much VSR spec as long as you have the right receiver on there and the right internals for your cylinder. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Now you know what's in my build and what will be in my build as far as the stock and the hop-up upgrades. But yeah, that's this video, and that's pretty much all I have for today. So hopefully you guys have a pretty good idea of what's going on with this build. But yeah, that's all I have. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I can test some parts here that I have in the shop if you're wondering some other things with other parts, or I could just tell you firsthand if it'll fit or not, or if it's compatible or not, or what is and what isn't. But yeah, you guys have a good one and take care.